How we doing, everybody? It's Friday, November 14th. Here for our second go around, kind of bringing NASCAR, trying to answer some questions and maybe bring NASCAR to some people that don't really know a whole lot about it. I'm SEC Sean, your host for this. Let me go ahead and give a quick shout out to our whole crew. You can catch all their channels scrolling across the bottom down here also. Got WTP Sports Dudes. We've got Level Up Sports 10. Parlay Poe with the Blitzburg podcast. We've got Post Game with the Post Game 86 podcast. We've got City League TV. That's run by T1 at City League TV. You find him on Facebook and YouTube. FanDuel Zaya. He's got the FanDuel Zaya podcast. And then, of course, I'm SEC Sean, as I said before. If you're watching, don't hesitate to ask questions throughout the evening. We're going to go through some topics. If you saw last week's episode, we kind of just gave a big overview of the sport and kind of some of that little history and just different things. As we move forward, we're going to get a little more in depth into things. This week, we're going to start about, talking about teams, some of the cost that these teams encounter throughout a season, some driver salaries, just for fun, just to kind of give you an idea what these drivers get paid for what they do. Cost of sponsoring a car, and then we're going to get further into what does it cost to run a team in the three different levels of NASCAR. So get started right away. I see our buddy Doug Jones has posted up with what is the number of NASCAR teams and how many drivers. Well, that was actually my first topic of the evening. So we've got somebody who is an overachiever in the audience, which is great. So we got notes tonight. There's 36 teams that are chartered. The NASCAR runs on a charter series. And what it is if you have a charter for a car, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes too. When you have a charter, you're guaranteed a starting spot in every race. Then there's 36 races in the season. Right now, there's 36 charters. That number can go up to about 40, but right now it's capped out at 36. So you will have some people that'll just enter a car in this race and enter a car in that race. But the top 36, the 36 charter teams are always guaranteed a race. Now, I'm going to change that up a little bit because right now we have two teams, 2311 Racing, which is owned by Denny Hamlin, a current driver, and Michael Jordan. That Michael Jordan that you're all thinking of, yes. And Front Row Motorsports are both suing NASCAR for an antitrust. Don't know how that all going to turn out, but as of right now, those two teams are not chartered teams. They're not being looked at as chartered. That could change. So we're just going to count them as chartered right now. So you've got Hendrick Motorsports is probably the most well-known NASCAR team. They run Chevy, and they have 4 different cars in their stable. Next, you have Joe Gibbs. Yes, that Joe Gibbs. He runs Toyotas, and he has 4 cars. Then you have Team Penske, Roger Penske. He runs a Ford's, and he has 3 cars in his. Then you've got the 2311 I spoke with, which they run Toyotas, and they have 3 drivers. Trackhouse, which used to have ownership with partly Pitbull. They run Chevy cars, and they have 3 of them. Richard Childress Racing. A lot of people know Richard Childress Racing because it was the team that Dale Earnhardt Sr. drove for. They run Chevys, and they have 2 cars. Wood Brothers Racing, which is who runs this guy, Josh Berry. They run Fords, and they have 1 car. They are also the oldest NASCAR team. They have been around for 76 years, all 76 years of NASCAR. they build their cars in the Penske team shop. They have a good alliance with Penske. So really Penske, you could say, has 4 cars. RFK Racing, which is Jack Roush, who used to run a NASCAR team called Roush. And then he joined up with the Fenway Management Group, and then Brad Keselowski, one of the racers. They have RFK Racing. They do Fords, and they have 3 of them. Spire Motorsports, I don't remember who owns them, but they run Chevys, and they have 3 of them. Legacy Motor Club has Toyotas, and they run 2, sometimes 3, depending. Sometimes they add an extra car in. That's owned by Jimmy Johnson and Richard Petty. I think Richard Petty has kind of stepped back, but it's owned by Jimmy Johnson. They call it Legacy because Jimmy Johnson has 7 championships, and so did Richard Petty. Colleague Racing is owned by Matt Colleague. They're Chevys, and they have 2. If I didn't mention it, Legacy Motor Club runs Toyotas, and they have 2 of them. There's the Front Row Motorsports is next. They run Fords, and they have 3. Then you have Hayek Motorsports, which is a Chevrolet team with 1 car. The Haas factory team runs Fords, which is 1 car. And Rick Ware Racing, which is a Ford with 1 car. Rick Ware Racing is very interesting. That is just a guy who owns a race team, and his son is the driver. Haas factory team used to be Stewart Haas Racing, but Tony Stewart got out, so they sold off, and they went down from 4 cars down to 1. So that's a list of your teams and kind of the breakdown of them. And as we get further into this series, we'll break it down even more with some of the drivers that drive for each of the teams. Your big 3 teams in the sport are Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske. Your second tier is probably 2311 Trackhouse. And then that's probably really the next tier is those 2. The rest of them are they can jump up and be good, win a race here, win a race there. But the top 3 are the big dogs. That's just how I look at it. Some people may disagree and say 2311 is better than Penske. I don't know. I don't think 2311 is better than Penske. I mean, but I'm just a fan, and that's the good thing about being a fan is everybody can have their own opinions. Let's see. We got some questions popping in. What's up, Moss? I see you down there in the comments. Of course, Doug's in. Got another question. I'll get to that one here in a few minutes. Barry. Yep. Josh Berry. Funny story about Josh Berry, real quick. My driver. He is like the 3rd most popular person ever to graduate his high school with his graduating class. He's 3rd. There's an IndyCar racer, and I forgot the kid's name, but he races in the IndyCar series. But the most popular person to graduate from his class is this lady. She's sometimes seen with that tight end from the Chiefs. I think her name's Taylor Swift, something like that. But yeah, she's pretty popular from what everybody tells me. Cost per race. I got a little typo there. Cost per race, cost of tires and fuel. So a typical race, 4 tires obviously on the car. If you run with 3, it's probably not going to be a good race. The tires can cost you anywhere between, for 4 tires, $1,000 to $2,500. You can get up to about $25,000 per race for tires. You want to complain about your fuel costs? 1 gallon of gas for a NASCAR car is $6 a gallon. They run 22-gallon tanks. So if you fill up 5 times, it's $1,870 in fuel for 1 race. Engines can vary based on the horsepower at that track and things like that. And we can get into the horsepower and stuff later as we get into more tracks. But you can look at an engine, you figure it's going to cost anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 per engine. Here we go. You want to own a NASCAR team and you want to get a charter and get you into every race, right? Okay, I'll take $35 million. Then you can have a car. Yeah, you heard me right. I know I'm letting y'all all get up off the floor. So that Hendrick team and Joe Gibbs that have 4 cars, that's $140 million a year that they have to pay to race. It's not $35 million for the team, $35 million per car. So yeah, you just shell out $140 million to be able to race for 36 weeks. Jump down here real quick. Throw Doug's comment in before I jump back into mine. How do you become a NASCAR driver, and is there a youth league? Yes and no. To start in NASCAR, most of these people have started out driving go-karts, things like that, at about anywhere between 5 to 7 years old. Then they move up in the classes and, different cars, modified cars, late model cars. They move their way up as they get older. You can, the Arca Menard series is the lowest series of NASCAR. And I think you can race in that when you're 16, 15 maybe. But you have to pass a driving license test on that side of racing, not just like your local, license department. You have to actually go be able to do that. But you also have to be noticed. A lot of guys go around to these little dirt tracks, especially up here in the Midwest. There's a lot of dirt tracks, and they race these little sprint cars and midget cars. And that's where people start looking at them and make a name. And all of a sudden, one person sees them, and the next thing you know, that person's moving their way up the ranks because somebody saw them and thought they were good. It's just a big word of mouth sport, but there's not really like a youth league like you would say for like travel baseball or something in Little League baseball with the World Series and stuff. There's nothing like that. It's more or less just, you buy a kid a go-kart, you start racing it around the little local tracks, and then if the kid enjoys it, you start moving yourself up the ranks to bigger and faster. And there's numerous tiers of go-karts. You'll have the slow ones, then faster. And of course, you move your way up. But that's the best way to get into it. I mean, there's other ways, of course. William Byron, who drives for Hendrick Motorsport, number 24 car, he got into NASCAR on iRacing on the computer. He was dominant at it, and somebody saw him and put him in a real car on the track, and that's how he got noticed. So you don't have to go the traditional way. There is with esports evolving like it is, you can go that route too. But the traditional path is coming up through the go-kart ranks. You can find clips and stuff on YouTube and a bunch of other sites. You can look up Braxton Busch, Busch. You can look up Keelan, Keelan Harvick, Harvick, and find these kids racing go-karts, little cars, mini cars, all the time. That's just what they do. They live to race. That's how they were raised. Their dads were both racers. So that's kind of how you get into it. I'll get into your question there. WTP Sports Dudes has a pretty good question. I'll get into that one at the end because that's going to be a good ending point I wanted to touch anyway. So we'll get to that one here in a little bit. So now you know the cost. You want to sponsor a car now? Have your name, your company, your logo, your face. I don't care what you want to put on there. So to be what they call an associate sponsor, which is not, obviously a big primary. It's just kind of, you got a little bitty spot on the car. That can cost you $500,000 to $5 million a year. You want to be the title sponsor for a race. It's $1 million to $10 million, depending on the race. Daytona 500, probably closer to $10 million. A race at Kansas, maybe closer to $1 million. That's one race. You want to be the primary sponsor, the big logo on the front hood of the car, the big logo, my mug on the car. $5 million to $35 million a year. You want to be a trackside sponsor, which is like, just at the track, kind of just a small little in the background. That's anywhere between $50,000 to $5 million per race. And then they have a digital sponsorship, and I'm not sure how that one works, but it's 20,000 to 500,000 to be that one, depending on what they call the campaign. And like I said, I don't know about that one as much. That one's newer to me. So that's just kind of your cost to say, yeah, I run a business and I'm gonna sponsor a car. Well, you better have a very profitable business. And if you do, y'all can DM me and we can talk side if you're looking for help. So next we'll jump over real quick to this just for fun. And this was updated March 25th of 2025. These are just some of the driver salaries. Kyle Busch drives for Richard Childress Racing. Compensation, $16.9 million. Denny Hamlin, this is his salary, not what he has for owning the team. But his salary from Joe Gibbs was $13.1 million. You have Brad Keselowski, I mentioned the owner, part owner of one of the teams, 9.4, $9 million. These are the top 10. The lowest on the top 10 is $3.5 million. And then that's their contract. They still make other stuff with sponsors, race winnings, media events, people that pay them to go show up at events, all that kind of stuff. So they make more than that. That's just their salary. Let's see if we got any more questions real quick before I jump into my last three notes. Let's see. Nope, no more questions yet. We'll see if anybody else pops up while I go through the last little bit I have right here. So what I did was I took the 3 series and I kind of went through and just figured out cost. And we're not going to break it down too in depth. This is just kind of fun to kind of get an idea. So the cost to own a NASCAR Cup Series team, the highest of the high, the big boys, the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, not counting the charter cost. This is just to run the team. It costs you about 18 to 18.5 million a year. And then it goes into driver salaries, maintenance of cars, things like that. It's the overall cost is well over 18 million, but that's just kind of an averaged out about what it would be. So you say, okay, well, I don't have 18 million. I only have about 10 million. Okay, well, you can now own a NASCAR Xfinity car. Second level, AAA baseball. Now, I said NASCAR Xfinity. It's changing its name. It's actually going to be next year the O'Reilly Auto Parts race series. But for now, it's Xfinity. So that's what we're going with. You can really do probably a mid-tier team in the O'Reilly Xfinity series for about $5 million. But if you want to be a top team, which why are you going to go into something and not try to be a top team? That's where about the 10 to 12 million pops up. Lower division, I call it AA baseball, would be the truck series, Craftsman Truck Series. That's actually the cheap version of it. I say cheap. Cheap. Well, it's only like $3 million a year. That's pretty cheap. So, but that's, you again, you're looking at $3 million, but you could spend up to $15 million based on how much you're having to put in there, how much repairs are you having to do, and all these different things. It's not a cut and dry sport. Now, the difference is this year is, well, not this year, but since they've brought out what we call the Gen 7 car, which is the new car, NASCAR has tried to cut the cost for the teams. And so, like, they get the engines, they put them in the car. Everything is what they call a single source part. Pretty much everybody has the same part now. they're made a little different because there's 3 different manufacturers and things have to fit right. But they're made a little bit different, but they're the same. And they tried to do it so that it's a lot cheaper for the teams, and to try to take out so much of the quote unquote gray areas that people in NASCAR loved to exploit back in the day. So they tried to do that to make it. And plus, you have some of the teams, like I mentioned, the Hayek, the teams like that don't have a lot of they don't have the resources of these big, huge, giant teams. So it can kind of even the playing field a little bit more. I enjoy it. I think when they did it, I'm not necessarily a fan of the car, just because of the way it drives. But I do like the fact that it has brought a little more parity to the sport, to where there used to be times where you'd have guys running off. Even go back to 2020. I know we don't all want to go back to 2020, but go back to 2020 on a computer, and you can go look up almost every weekend. The race was either won by Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin. And sometimes they were racing back to back, like a Saturday and a Sunday, because the schedule was COVID. We all know how that went. But they would race Saturday and Harvick would win, and they'd race Sunday at the same track and Hamlin would win. And Harvick would come in second. And the day before, Hamlin would come in second. They just dominated the whole year, those two did. I think Harvick wound up with 9 wins. I think Hamlin wound up with 7. So this has kind of eliminated that now. Like last year, including the playoff run, I think Denny Hamlin had maybe 5 wins, 6 wins. But you're not getting these 9, 10, 11 win seasons that people used to put together anymore. It's a lot more spread out. So, WTP Sports Dudes, what's the strategy for having more than one car on certain teams? Well, there's a few different avenues to that. A, gives you more chances to win. B, some of the tracks that you'll go to, we call them drafting tracks, super speedways. Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, Michigan to an extent. The teams, we call them drafting tracks because that's where you'll see the cars nose to tail bumping each other, like I was talking about in last week's episode. So if you don't have teammates, most of the time it's not just teammates, it's manufacturer mates. So the Chevys work together, the Fords work together, the Toyotas work together. But if you're at the front, and let's say I'm driving a Ford, and I'm up front with a bunch of Chevrolets, you might even see a car kind of pull out of the way and let the Chevrolet and the Toyotas go on until he can find some Fords and then lock back in place with them. But you have your teammates. You can have your teammates in those races side by side, a teammate here and a teammate here, and you can control both lines. This one will speed up, this one will speed up, and you can control the whole race that way. So there's numerous different strategies. There was an issue last year where teams were blocking teams from passing cars so people could advance in the playoffs. NASCAR caught wind of it and just put the slap down and said, y'all manipulated the outcome of the race. You're out of the playoffs. And so that kind of stopped all that real fast. But that's the strategy mainly, is more chances. You have to, the big payouts come. Everybody thinks that the drivers get the big payouts, but what they don't realize is at the end of the season, there's 2 different point things. There's drivers' points and there's owners' points. So drivers obviously race for the driver championship. Owners race for owner championship. And that's where the big money is, believe it or not. So if you have 4 teams and they finish 1, 2, 5, and 9 in the owners championships, you're getting prize money for 1, 2, 5, and 9. Now you may have two really good teams that finish 1 and 2, and you may have two really bad teams that finish 34 and 35, but you're still getting all that money, which helps then offset the cost of stuff for next year, pretty much. And the charters, my understanding, and I need to look on this because I don't know if it's changed or not, but my understanding is once you buy the charter, you don't buy it again. You don't have to buy it every year. So once you buy one, you own it. Now you can sell it. Some charters, based on how bad, there's no set value. I've seen charters be bought for 25 million. I've seen them sell for 40. So it's just, where's the market at for a charter? Who wants out, and who wants in? If you want out, then you may take a little bit less to get out. No, it's just like golf. Sorry, I didn't read your question. Is it a winner take all, or do they split the purse based on your finish like in golf? No, every driver that finishes, that starts the race, the chartered ones especially, we're just going to talk about charters. We're not going to get into the non-chartered. That gets way too confusing. So your chartered teams, everybody gets something. You may finish 36. You may get $20. Here you go. That's a joke. You're not getting $20. But some of these people may get, you win the race, maybe you get 1.4 million for that race. Maybe it's 3 million if it's Daytona. Maybe it's 1.5 if it's Talladega. Maybe it's 900,000 if it's Kansas or Las Vegas or Phoenix. And the playoffs, the money, the owner money goes to the owner. So like Rick Hendrick, who owns Hendrick Motorsports, he would get all the money. Last year, his cars finished first, fourth. Let me look real quick. Last year, in the owner standings, Rick Hendrick finished first, fourth, 8th, and 13th. I don't have the payouts for what they got for those places, but Rick Hendrick got that money. Joe Gibbs finished 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and something. 19th. So he got that money. So, I mean, it's really good money too. It's a good chunk of change. Especially since last year NASCAR negotiated their TV contract, and I want to say it was something like $7.2 billion for the media rights. I could be wrong on that. I'll have to look that one up. But I want to say it was something insane like that, something I never thought it'd get to. But, that's because they use Fox, they use NBC, they use Amazon Prime, they use Peacock does some of that to NBC too, but TNT Sports, which is still kind of NBC USA. I think that's all the services they use, but it's a 10-year media rights deal, and it is literally a ton of money. So that's kind of where you are with teams in this sport. The crazy thing about it is here's the way I like to explain it to people too is we're going to use football. So you have a football team. We're in the Midwest, so we're just going to use the Buckeyes. But on that, you have one team. But in NASCAR, yeah, we have one team, Hendrick Motorsports, but we have 4 teams on the team. So it's a whole different dynamic when you don't have to, you run one team, but each team has its own little team. Like you have your own driver, crew chief, and pit crew here. Driver, crew chief, pit crew here. You have 4 of those. And they're their own. They're doing their things their way. They're doing their things their way. They're doing it and they're doing it. But at the end of the day, when it's time to actually, that's through, qualifying and all this, they're all doing different things. And then they all sit down and talk. Oh, your car was the best. What was your setup? Oh, we're going to change our car to that. Oh, my driver doesn't like the way that feels. We're going to have to go back the other way. So you use teams to bounce ideas off each other. When you get teams in the playoffs, when you're in the playoffs, you may have a team like Hendrick, say they had 2 cars in the playoffs and 2 out. They may use the other 2 cars set up totally different in 2 different ways than the other 2 cars in the playoffs, and then see about putting it together and see what works the best. There's so many dynamics to having a multi-car team. Some teams just can't afford, to run more than 1 car. The Wood brothers, they're a family owned. They were started by 2 brothers. They don't have the money. They have money, but they don't have the money to bring in a whole nother second or third team. The same with that Hayek Motorsports and Haas factory team does. That dude's loaded. Gene Haas is loaded. He runs an F1 team also. 2 of them actually. But Rick Ware Racing, family owned. He's not going to throw a second or third team out there. It's just way too much money for these guys. So that's where you get into it. Everybody knows who Joe Gibbs is. Everybody knows who. Now, Joe Gibbs doesn't just front all that money by himself. He's got a bunch of investors too. Don't think he doesn't. Roger Penske Van Lines, owns Indianapolis Motor Speedway, pretty much owns the Indy series for racing there. He's got plenty of money. Rick Hendrick, Chevrolet dealer, biggest Chevrolet dealer in the world. It's so I think somebody said he had 120 dealerships all over the East Coast and throughout parts of that. Biggest known, sells more Chevrolets than anybody else. No, Bobby Rahal was IndyCar. He raced in the IndyCar series. Really good too. I keep up with a few forms of motorsports, not just NASCAR I keep up with, but NASCAR to me is the biggest and baddest, and it's the best. I will watch some IndyCar, like Memorial Day weekend. That Sunday, everybody has their Super Bowl thing where it's a whole day thing. Man, that's my day. I get up in the morning at 8 o'clock and I start watching the F1 race in Monaco, and then I flip over to the IndyCar race at noon, and then I flip on to the NASCAR Coca-Cola 600 at 6 o'clock at night in Charlotte. And it goes till about 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight. Just sitting in front of the TV watching racing all day long. My wife's least favorite day of the year. So that's just some of the cost, just to give people an idea as we get further into this. What we're looking at. I'll look at next week. I'll figure out what topic, and then I'll come back and look at this and see if if there's any other comments or anything. But next week I might do. I don't know if I want to do drivers or if I want to break down the different styles and stuff with track. I may do a combo of that. I may do just some different drivers' names, give people an idea. Actually, I think next week we're going to discuss drivers, how to go about figuring out who you want to root for. Yeah, we'll probably go through some of that next week. I just, it's something I want to get more people exposure to, is what I feel like I said in the previous episode, the best fan experience there is in sports. you know, a lot of people don't know about it. They think it's boring, but I'm telling you, we'll get together. We'll get everybody, have everybody do a little looking, see what you think about it. Like I said, we'll get probably after the first of the year, we're going to go through how to get, you know, the app set up and how to earn all your points and all that good stuff to get your free stuff. But we'll do that after the first of the year when the app resets. I don't want to get people going on it right now. If we don't have any other questions, we're probably going to shut this one down a little early this evening, and go on and let everybody go enjoy their Friday night. I got to go catch up on some football and catch up with some high school football out of Texas. Plus, I think the wife wants to go to dinner and got to keep her happy. So, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Y'all remember to, you know, like, subscribe, share, you know, delete me if you know, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Like, subscribe, share to all the channels scrolling at the bottom, all of us. There's content on all those pages. You know, I know Post Game does a lot of Notre Dame. He did a big thing the other day on the Notre Dame basketball teams. You know, FanDuel does a lot of like stuff with, you know, betting sites and you know, he gives you betting stuff normally on Wednesday. We're good. The WTP Sports Dudes, we normally run Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. I took Friday to do my NASCAR talk. You know, Parlay Poe, he's got his Blitzburg, big Pittsburgh guy, big Michigan guy. So, you know, get a lot of info from them. Level Up Sports, he does all kinds of stuff. That dude, he's got interviews. He's got all kinds of stuff going on over there. Mine, we're just getting mine rolling. We're going to start off with NASCAR. We're going to start throwing a little hockey talk in there, hoping the Blue Jackets pick it up a little more before we start that. We'll throw some hockey talk in there. You know, I'm just kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I'll talk all kinds of sports with anybody. We got the World Cup next. You know, we got all kinds of stuff we can talk about. So y'all go like, subscribe, share. Doesn't cost you anything to hit that subscribe button or like button. Doesn't sign you up for anything. Not going to ask you for anything. Just makes us look a little good. Yeah, Doug, high school playoffs. I know. It's 8:30. That's why I started this at 8, so that I could let the games kind of get going before I go jump in and check the scores and find out which game I want to watch. So, y'all have a good evening, and we'll get back together probably next Friday. We'll see. It depends on what's going on, but more than likely next Friday. If not, it's where you keep that notifications up, and you'll know when we go in live, and you can get some more stuff going with this NASCAR chat. Other than that, y'all have a good evening. We'll see y'all next time.